intimate partner violence.
And how frequently have you treated patients who have perpetrated the intimate partner violence?
So again, in the outpatient setting, I don't see it quite as much, but in the inpatient setting, again, it's a really relative common phenomenon that we'll see perpetrators of partner violence. And, you know, they're patients who need treatment too.
And overall, how many patients have you treated who have been perpetrators of intimate partner violence?
Perpetrators?
Yes.
Probably 5 to 10% of the patients I do is perpetrators.
And would you say tens of thousands over the 30 years?
Yes.
And leading.
Tens of thousands leading.
As part of treating patients relating to intimate partner violence, do you regularly evaluate these patients?
Do I regularly evaluate the patient?
Evaluate the patient, yes.
Oh, yes. Yes, regularly. They get the same comprehensive evaluation that I described before.
Are you licensed in Virginia?
Yes, I am.
And when did you first become licensed in Virginia?
Are you licensed as a mental patient?
Have you been qualified by courts as an expert witness?
Yes, I have.
In how many states have you been qualified as an expert?
3, which would...
But IPV specifically.
I will reiterate again, you cannot separate intimate partner violence and say that is a separate rubric aside from trauma. Trauma is overall, intimate partner violence is part of trauma, and the answer to the question is any individual who suffers from a dissociative disorder, which I am the author of a chapter of, suffers from trauma, whether it be at the hands in childhood or it be at the hands of an intimate partner.
Right, but you've already testified that half your practice is trauma and a subset of that practice is IPV, correct?
Which is, actually, I treat the national average of patients. About 20% of patients suffer from it, and that's about my practice number.
Except you're discounting the fact that half your practice is not trauma at all. So 10% of your practice is IPV.
I don't know if the numbers add up exactly like that.
I'm just using yours.
Board certified in consultation liaison psychiatry.
Okay. And
and again, that includes residents at every level. That includes medical students, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st year physician assistant students. So every day is a teaching explanation session to the students and residents.
what is your role at Eastern Virginia Medical School as the acting chair? Please tell the jury what that means.
So as the acting chair, you are not only accountable for your own practice, but you are accountable for your faculty members' practices. So I have to make sure that everyone is treating, seeing, evaluating a certain number of patients. I have responsible for their academic requirements, so in terms of publishing, et cetera. I'm responsible for their teaching assignments to other residents, to other students. I'm responsible for fiscally that they are accountable to their fiscal productivity. So I have a heck of a lot of other administrative
cows that they are like the livestock.
Have you published in your field?
To the tune of about 80 manuscripts, and I have my own book on catatonia and the consultation liaison setting. I have a book chapter on the current and trying to make current and contemporary approaches, temperamental disease was the psychiatric portion. I'm also in a dissociative identity disorders chapter.
He's had enough time to write a book about his experiences being in it.
And have you peer-reviewed literature?
Yes, so I'm a reviewer on, I've served as a reviewer on Lancet. I've served as a reviewer as Innovations in Clinical Neuroscience. I've served on reviewer for Clinical Neuropharmacology, and I'm actually editor-in-chief of, at this point, of Clinical Neuropharmacology.
Have you lectured on the effects of drugs and alcohol on the human brain?
Yes, I teach to the residents. I teach lecture to the second-year medical students, third-year medical students. So I am fully aware of not only what I teach, but what I see in the emergency room and the consultation and inpatient settings.
Have you published and lectured on the causes and effects of intimate partner abuse.
Have you ever been
Yes,
intimate
I
with
punctured, I
anybody?
believe 2 articles on the effects
partner
of trauma.
A
and in that
robot
trauma
or
was intimate partner
whatever the
violence.
hell else?
Are you familiar with the hallmarks of intimate partner violence?
Yes.
Are you familiar with what causes
Have you
intimate
been
partner
violent
violence?
with an
One more,
intimate partner?
excuse me?
What causes intimate partner
Yes,
violence?
what causes it?
Yes, there's a multiple explanation that causes intimate partner violence. And if I can I just mention at this point too,
Thought I was half dead.
when we are discussing intimate partner violence,
Yes.
I think it's imperative for the jury to know we are talking about repetitive behavior over periods of time.
Much like what this
And
witness
the
is doing.
type of abuse can be any physical, psychological, sexual, but just as important is for somebody, one of the partners, to maintain some uneven element of control or to maintain power, control, or authority. So there are a lot of facets to intimate partner violence. I know people tend to think of it as just the actual abuse act, but there's more to it than just the actual
You
abuse
should
act.
know,
Abuse act's
you probably
important.
see a lot
but
of
it's not the sole
violence, you know, since
Your
He's
Honor,
an
I move to
inmate, or
qualify
I
Dr.
excuse
Spiegel as
the
an expert in the field of
inpatient,
psychiatry and behavioral sciences with specific emphasis on drug and
mental
alcohol
patient
abuse,
for
intimate
30
partner violence,
years. He's
and the
had to see
effect
a
of
lot of
these as they
violence.
pertain to the issues in this case.
All right, any objection?
Your Honor,
You wish to voir dire?
I do.
Okay. To his qualifications.
His qualifications.
Okay,
forgery,
thank you.
robbery, murder, and anything else.
Oral issues, yeah, but there are many patients who complain to review
My
articles,
God.
yes.
So you've read about it, is what you just testified to.
I would have to disagree
This
with you
is
on
what
that, sir.
insane
Reading about it and writing a
grounds-
review article
Right.
are completely two different things, sir.
All right. You haven't authored any articles specifically on IPV, have you, sir?
As a subset of trauma, the answer is yes. In terms of in the name of the title of the article, the answer is no.
You've never written any books specifically on
He's
IPV?
written all children's books.
I've never written any books on IPV, although
God.
temporomandibular disease, okay, in terms of psychiatric issues, does have a higher frequency in those patients who have suffered from trauma, including intimate partner violence.
You've never.
And I am part of that book.
He's part of the
Temporal
insanity.
mandibular disease deals with problems with the jaw.
The jaw.
Is that a question, sir?
What is temporomandibular?
The temporomandibular disease is a problem with
Mandibular
oral
disease?
issues, yeah,
What
but there are
the
many
fuck?
patients who complain of oral issues where the oral surgeon cannot find a reason for it, and the reason why they can't is because people who have suffered from trauma and intimate partner violence are prone to increased sensitivity of somatic sensations, which can manifest in temporomandibular disease. Thank you, I appreciate that. Nice plug for my book, too, thank you.
Didn't hear it, but there we go.
My
So,
God, he's full of himself.
You haven't
dude.
written any chapters
This guy
in any
has a
books
mental
specifically
problem.
about
He's
IPV.
being full of himself. I mean, you know what?
Again, I think I've gone over that.
I didn't
I've
go
written
over
2
myself,
articles
I
on
did,
that,
yeah.
and I've written parts of chapters. And dissociative identity disorder, I should add, where I did write a chapter on, is completely
You should know, he
based
still
on
thinks that he's a
trauma
very
and
important person.
intimate partner violence.
Right.
So
I'm
he
not
knows
asking
a
about
lot
trauma
about that.
because you want to talk about trauma. I'm asking you about IPV specifically.
I will reiterate again, you cannot separate intimate partner violence and say that is a separate rubric aside from trauma. Trauma is overall, intimate partner violence is part of trauma, and the answer to the question is any individual who suffers from a dissociative disorder, which I am the author of a chapter of, suffers from trauma, whether it be at the hands in childhood or it be at the hands of an intimate partner.
My God, this
Right,
mental
but you've
patient
already
is good.
testified that half your practice is trauma and a subset of that practice is IPV, correct?
Which is actually I treat the national average of patients. About 20% of patients suffer from it, and that's about my practice number.
That, except you're discounting the fact that half your practice is not trauma at all. So 10% of your practice is IPV.
I don't know if the numbers add up exactly like that.
I'm just using
but
yours.
I don't know if I'm doing. I don't know if those numbers add up like that because I'm not sure if that's the case. If you say 25%, then maybe 12.5% of my practice. That's being rather specific. So again, a significant number of my patients have suffered from intimate partner violence. I see it on a daily basis, and I'm not sure exactly why I'm getting asked the same question again. Thank you, sir.
You listed 60 references to articles. I guess you said 80 now, and publications.
I said around, sorry, I said around 80. I said around 80.
60, 80, whatever it is, right?
No, 60 and 80 is not, if you go to the PubMed, actually, why don't you go to PubMed right now and Google, not Google, put PubMed Spiegel DR, and you'll find that number is 72 with 2 waiting to be impressed. 1 submitted, so that'd be 75. So it's around 80. So again, what's on my CV is not necessarily the most updated version, because I still publish since the CV's been given to you, sir.
Right.
And
not one of the 72, 80 articles has IPV in the title, right?
Correct. Not one of them has IPV. It does have trauma, but not IPV. Right.
And you've never presented on the topic of IPV specifically?
As a function of trauma and as a function of somatic illness, again, I would say to you that it's part and parcel of these illnesses. So the answer is yes, I have. Okay. Right. The answer is yes, I have.
And IPV doesn't appear in your CV at all.
If you say it's not in my CV, I will believe you. Okay. There's a lot of things that are not in my CV that I do.
There's a lot of stuff you don't know, after all. Huh?
And you're not associated with any professional literature on IPV.
I'm sorry, repeat the question, sir?
Is there any professional literature that you've contributed to
have you done anything professional?
Specifically as
being
opposed to trauma
in a mental institution. I mean, being in a mental institution.
The answer to the question again, sir, is that you cannot separate this artificial separation you are trying to do between trauma and intimate partner violence. It is part and parcel of trauma. We don't thread it like that.
Your Honor,
such a smart
plaintiff would accept this witness as an expert on general psychiatry.
I wish I had his intelligence.
With respect to the drug usage.
I wish I had his manner, his decorum.
But not with
I wish I had his hair.
No objection. He's entered as an expert as stated on the record. Right, you may continue. Thank you.
I don't.
Dr. Spiegel, at our request, what have you reviewed in this case? And just go ahead and give me more.
So it's a lengthy review,
yes.
But court filings,
boost yourself up again.
Psychological testing that was done on Ms. Heard by both Dr. Hughes and Dr. Curry. Other physicians' medical records, other physician note, Dr. Kipper. Counselors and therapists that both parties and psychiatrists that they went to. Text messages. Depositions.
He does texting too.
Snippets of
the
UK trial.
Too. Wow.
And I'm sure
so
pictures of physical injuries. So I've seen a lot.
Pretty much psychoanalyst.
What, if anything, have you seen in terms of emails, audios, videos?
Yes. So I've seen the videos.
They're not many, guys.
Mr. Depp. I think the video was showing of Mr.
That have been institutionalized, don't know how to sext for text, or I should say even able to, because they're usually medicated.
Mr. Depp destroying, slamming cupboards and breaking glass and yelling at Ms. Heard while having a wine glass in his with wine in his hands. I've seen videos of destruction of property in the house.
Okay. And what, if any, review have you conducted of the deposition and testimony of Mr. Depp's hired witness, Dr. Curry?
Objection.
Sure.
This is usually where people wait for their top ramen to get back for the microwaves. This is a very serious time for the court. I know. Plus, they have to get their soy sauce. If they're ordering pizza, this could take a lot longer. Or Taco Bell. Now they're discussing antacids. So it's how you measure cramps. They're attempting to see where next Panda Express is at. Who wants orange chicken? Hot or spicy chicken? They're just gonna microwave it. They're gonna use top ramen. Looks like. They don't want to, but they're gonna have to. Coming from a veteran here that is used to how to do this before in court. It's a tough cookie. Especially if they don't have fortune cookies. God, I could use a fortune cookie right now. How do I know what my fortune is? Well, I know if I'll get that extra 10 cents in my check tomorrow. Use some hot sauce with it. I think they still want to try to get Panda Express later.
Do you remember my question? Did you review the
reviewed
deposition and testimony of Dr. Curry?
Dr.
Curry.
Yes, I've Dr. Yes, I'm sorry.
And-
Yes, so I reviewed testimony of Dr. Curry. I reviewed Dr. Curry's reports. I reviewed Dr. Curry's testimony.
Okay, and did you review the deposition and trial testimony of Dr. Hughes?
Yes.
Dr.
Objection, Your Honor, beyond the scope of the disclosure.
I'll allow that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Did you interview Mr. Depp?
No, I did not.
Did
What
you
the hell
request
did you get
to
this
I
interview?
requested to interview
Oh,
Mr. Depp twice, and both
He's an
times Mr.
inmate.
Depp
I mean,
refused.
he's getting
Dr. Spiegel, I'm going to
there.
ask you some-
Oh, because he's a mental patient. Oh, that explains it. I thought this is somebody that was real. For a second, I forgot that he is not mentally able because he is, what's it called? He's intake there. Not intake. But he's an inpatient. You know, all you have to do is look at the guy. You know, I mean, geez. You know, they put a suit on him because he's not wearing his proper attire for being in a mental part of the area and a mental institution and everything. So the the guy as a legitimate person that knows what he's talking about, and we gotta give this guy credit. Being in an insane asylum, being able to sext and text. This guy's been through a lot of shit. 30 years in a mental institution. I mean, look, not many guys could do what he's doing. You know.
Some questions in this case respecting your opinions and the opinions you have formed and the bases for them. And I'm going to ask...
I mean, this guy's a mental quack. You know, but I hear the judge. You know?
You to provide me with, in a reasonable degree
I
of
gave
medical
him props.
probability or certainty. Can you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
On what were you requested to analyze and opine in this case?
Opine.
So it's
Please
fourfold.
tell us.
One,
opine.
I was asked to opine about the risk factors that are associated with intimate partner violence and behaviors that are shown, risk factors that are shown in intimate partner violence to be consistent with behaviors that Mr. Depp has demonstrated. Two, I've been asked to opine about the acute effects on
Is he
alcohol
big
and substance
language?
use. And I mentioned
No,
that including
I've
mood,
never seen
behavior, cognition.
a guy, excuse
function.
me. I've never seen a mental patient use such big words without sense of. I don't know a time. This guy still, sometimes he really, look at this. Still gestures for the camera. This, that.
A review of the evidence based on my clinical experience, based on my publishing experience, based on my teaching experience, that Mr. Depp has behaviors.
This guy has posted a lot of stuff being in a mental ward.
That are consistent with both someone who has a substance use disorder as well as consistent behaviors for someone who is a perpetrator of intimate partner violence.
Thank you. I'm going to start with the impact of drug and alcohol abuse over time.
Yes.
First of all, based upon your review of the record
Hi.
evidence, what type of drugs has Mr. Depp used?
Oh.
So, Mr.
Forgot
Depp,
we were there.
and I'm talking about use, we're talking about a substance use disorder
Sorry,
here.
just
We're
not
not just
really
talking about use.
attracted to you.
Okay, so we are talking
Not
about
attracted to you either.
alcohol.
Sorry.
We are talking about
Just not my type.
amphetamines. We are talking about marijuana. We are talking about cocaine. We are talking
Marijuana.
about LSD. We are talking about ecstasy.
Mary
We are
Poppins.
talking about opiates. We are talking about prescription
Very
benzodiazepines. And we'll get into a separate thing about the abusability of Seroquel and or gabapentin or Ron. And we are talking about much of the time concurrent use, meaning simultaneously.
In your practice, do some patients suggest to you that drugs and alcohol actually help them?
Maybe perhaps the same sex.
So I think it's patients who lack
Have you ever
insight
had
or
sex?
in the very early stages of
Why not,
recognizing
poor
they
guy?
have a
Be
quote-unquote
mental
problem
institution,
will sometimes actually say that they have this medication actually calms me down, this medication makes me feel better. And in actuality, they may not acutely feel anything, but chronic and continual use will take its toll on the brain. So the answer is yes, but again, people who have substance use disorders have lack of insight and a lack of judgment about what's going on. They're very
should know
poor
about disorders, too. That's
moderators
quite
of
a
their
few,
own
probably.
behavior.
Has Mr. Depp suggested, based on your review of the record evidence, that alcohol and drugs actually help him?
In a review of the evidence, he has suggested that alcohol, Xanax, I'm in the list of medications, do
Xanax.
help. Although I will also
Xanax,
tell you on
whatever else,
review of
right.
the evidence that there were at least 2 times I can remember that Mr. Depp was referring to at least short-lived periods of sobriety, and I cannot exactly tell you what that included. That both times he said that he
Botox?
functioned better and that he
Did he say
recognized that
Botox?
alcohol and drugs was at the root of his problems.
Now, there's been
About Depp,
testimony
how am I
that
supposed
Mr.
to know
Depp
what's
is
being
quite
said?
charming, both off and on the drugs
think
and the
he's charming.
alcohol. What is your answer to that?
So, again, let me
I think
put
he
one
was a
thing
little
clear
ill,
here.
but
I
of
am
course
not
that's
here
what he
to
is.
impeach Mr. Depp's acting skills or his persona. He has way greater skills than I do in that. What I'm here to say is talk about how drugs and alcohol affect what we all have in common. We're all human beings. We can all only get so much, take so much when something is going to happen.
He
And that's
is
what I see
fucking
every day
deep
in the
shit.
emergency room consult
that is
service,
deep shit.
inpatient psychiatry, bad things happen, not because of anything special, except we're all human beings, and
For
our
an
brain,
inmate,
substance
I mean,
abuse
for
are not
an
titrated, they're
inpatient,
not regulated by the
it is
FDA.
pretty
We don't know
good.
what we're getting, we don't know how much we're getting. There is no control over what makes it to our brain. So it is not the actor, it is not the persona. That's his cognition has improved somewhat, which will happen if you are sober. So I commend him on that. But again, I'm specifically referencing the time with Ms. Heard's and Mr. Depp's relationship. So we're talking about that.
You've never
What, if
met the
any,
guy.
observations from the record evidence did you have about Mr. Depp having alcoholic blackouts or foggy mind?
Again, there were reported times where he would be essentially, quote unquote, passed out drunk. You saw pictures of him passed out drunk and not being able to remember what he did, which is, again, if you look at the record evidence, you will see that, and this is linking intimate partner violence and substance uses together. I know we're going to get to that, which is basically if you have blackouts and you're using alcohol,
This guy's
using
had quite
cocaine,
a lot.
it's going to be near impossible to remember what happened the night before. I don't think I'm
This
the first
inmate
person that's
is quite
ever
a
told
lot.
you
I mean, this
that alcohol can cause blackouts.
inpatient.
And basically, alcohol decreases a brain chemical, glutamate, which is involved in memory formation. If it blocks that to an extensive degree, the individual cannot remember what happened because they didn't have enough time for their brain to process the memory. You need this brain chemical. So does alcoholic blackouts happen every time? No, of course not. But are they a complication of a use disorder? Absolutely yes. And there was record evidence of that.
Dr. Spiegel, you said at one point alcohol and cocaine. Is it possible to have blackouts with alcohol and different types of substances?
Yes. So my clinical experience, and even though sober, and I've seen it in with Mr. Depp's record evidence, I've seen it clinically. Sober, we can contain that. We can contain that. But when you have these mixtures together, knowing, by the way, that about 40 up to 60% of intimate partner violence is done under the influence of alcohol and or substance use disorders. Okay, knowing that treating it gets it better, improves. I'm not saying it removes it, but improves it.
Yes, it proves you're
hearing
insane.
from Mr. Depp's own text to Dr. Kipper that he was better
That's
with
why
that
you're
things are
turd.
going better,
I mean,
will show you that given those confluence of factors, given them all lining up, the risk factors, combined with something that when any of us use to a certain amount, if we're novice at it, it'll be a lot less. If we're more experienced, you have more tolerance and dependence, it's going to take a lot more, but inevitably will make us disinhibited and will make us act out, and acting out could be done in a lot of different ways in intimate partner violence, okay?
Watching those.
So during the video deposition, what was readily apparent was a gentleman who had a significant delay in processing speed. And like I said, when you have a delay in processing speed, many other cognitive functions are going to follow. You're going to be impaired attention, concentration, memory, all that's going to happen. In terms of having to, the speech process, if you heard the deposition, the way the thoughts were conveyed were much more in the way of kind of disconnected, disjointed statements. It wasn't that they were not necessarily understandable, but they didn't have any coherent pattern until he was more structured by Ms. Bredehoff to kind of get to the point of the question, which happened throughout most of the deposition. And so you could see there that there was obviously some form of cognitive issue that should not be happening in someone in their mid-50s, and it probably due to the alcohol and substances.
What, if any, observations did you make about impulse control?
So during the deposition? Or,
Yes, or,
okay.
and,
Or any
and
other
other
time?
record evidence either.
So, again, I think that under the guise of not being acutely intoxicated, I think Mr. Depp was able to control much of his behavior, much of his thinking, even if it was aberrant or negative. He was able. I can?
The jury, believe me, the jury's been hearing it.
Okay, all right, I want to make sure. Jury, I want to make sure. Okay. So it's something along the line that Dr. Kipper is an effing charlatan. He ought to
Objection,
be,
hearsay.
He's entitled to rely on it, he's to give his examples.
He can talk about what he developed from the hearsay, but not repeat it himself.
He's entitled to give examples of it.
I'll
from
sustain
hearsay.
the objection.
Without giving the exact words that you recall.
Oh, without giving the
Go ahead,
exact words?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, without giving the exact words, it was basically vulgar language directed towards Dr. Cowan throughout multiple texts, multiple things that Dr. Cowan were doing in therapy.
He's probably
Like I say,
plenty of
without
therapy.
relaying it, the exact thing, I'm trying to be as
Being
accurate as I
interred.
can.
And
I think at the end of it, I think he was also talking about that Dr. Cowan was filling Amber with positive thoughts or therapeutic.
Objection, hearsay.
It's hearsay. That's
I think he's
definitely
keeping it more
hearsay.
general, and he's entitled to rely on it.
That's
Thank you.
fucking hearsay.
So
What the
more along
fuck?
the line of giving Amber psychiatric jargon to put on him.
As a psychiatric
and
patient,
actually,
you know,
what
this
I read
psychiatric
and interpreted
patient
what Dr. Cowan
gives out such great
was getting blasted for.
his
was
bias,
he was,
you know, such
you know,
great in-depthness, this mental, you know, patient. I'm on.
kind of teaching Amber how to be heard, how to use conflict resolution in a more appropriate manner and learning to express things more rationally rather than express things as irrational as they have been expressed. And for that, there were a lot of negativity being
Like petting
thrown at.
the
So again,
cat.
erratic behavior in terms of writing a text, but I have no problem with people being angry.
Pet that cat.
Okay, none whatsoever. It's just the expressing of it and the continual ranting of it was very uncomfortable for me to read. But regardless, I think we have seen in terms of erratic behavior,
Tap that
much
cat.
of the psychological and the physical maltreatment we talked about.
Objection beyond the scope of the question.
I don't agree.
I'll sustain next question.
Okay. Mr. Depp is 58 years old. Are the behaviors that you have been describing for the jury, are those typical and age-related?
No, so erratic, hit and miss, meaning they'll occasionally be there. You may need a little bit more time to answer a question or pull things out of memory. Just a
pull things
little
out their
bit
ass.
slow and a lot more inconsistently
done.
slow. You wouldn't describe what Dr. Blaustein's changes were or what I saw in the deposition attributed to age.
Dr. Spiegel, what is Seroquel?
Seroquel or quetiapine is actually an atypical antipsychotic, which is indicated for many things, including schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, adjunctive treatment for major depression. So it's indicated for a lot of things.
But what
Okay, I can't hear
what effects
everything.
may it have? I mean, this
Yeah, I see
is one
people
of the drugs that Mr.
getting
Depp
a
was taking.
teleprompter.
It was a prescribed drug.
So I know
Okay.
what's going on
So-
with this shit.
Yeah, please
Take
explain.
So the
it.
effect of Seroquel is it's very often used as a sleeping agent.
Yes.
Because it doesn't have
See?
a lot of the side effects that are
you.
associated with conventional antipsychotics, movement
Yes,
disorders,
psychotic,
tired
it's also
dyskinesia,
sleeping,
et cetera, or at least it's a very low
Jesus,
risk of that.
antipsychotic.
So people have used it off-label, physicians have used it off-label to help them sleep. The
Right.
problem is the
Yes.
effect is very barbiturate-like.
It can
And
be
it
barbiturate.
really knocks people out, or certainly if you use it at high enough doses, it can.
Yeah.
Okay? And the problem is it also has street value. So it's absolutely used on the street for that downer-like effect.
I use it on the street
And
all the time.
obviously, it's a little bit more readily available because
I
it's
use surf
prescribed.
well on the streets.
So it does have that street value portion of it.
And Dr. Spiegel, what effect would this have on Mr. Depp based on the dosages he was taking?
So I think what you're looking at
Anyways.
is
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
Please continue.
what you will see in patients who have substance use disorders are people who unfortunately kind of wake up and fall asleep only through pharmacological assistance, meaning that their own circadian rhythms are no longer in control of that behavior. So you will take stimulants to quote unquote get you up in the morning, and then you will take things like quetiapine, Seroquel to knock you out. So basically what these are being used for is,
Let's get it here.
okay, when we're thinking and we're not disinhibited, not having these hyper intense emotions from substances. Once you add that to this mix,
emotions,
your brain can no longer
get
do
what we really
it's
need
supposed
to
do.
just
And it's
let
supposed to
go.
prevent you from doing this, quite frankly, because it's wrong.
Just let
Did you
it
arrive at any
go.
conclusions concerning substance abuse and potential self-harm that may have led to Mr. Depp injuring his finger?
So
Injured is what?
I think the physician before me explained that pretty well, but I'll tell you that Mr. Depp has a
What
history
part of the
of self-injurious behavior, meaning
That was
cutting
some
himself.
other place,
Mr. Depp has a
yeah.
history of burning
I
himself.
thought it said finger in another part
I
of his
know
body.
when the actual event happened.
Well, if you give me
there
that
was
teleprompter or
texting
something,
to
I
Dr.
would be
Kipper,
able to
paraphrasing,
know.
not saying exactly,
Hearing
that
not deaf.
Amber and him got into a disagreement related to her wanting him to be sober, and then as a result of that, he said he got so angry he cut the tip of his finger off. So if you're asking me, can someone who has, or have I seen, and can someone who cuts
yes.
themselves, burns themselves, can cut a tip of their
Yes.
finger off
Yeah.
with or without alcohol or
Yes, you
cocaine
can.
or the rest? The answer is
Objection
yes.
beyond the scope of the question.
Exactly what he, thank you. Please
Was
continue.
it overruled?
It was overruled.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So that is not a very far jump. I've certainly seen patients do a lot worse than that who started out with similar risk factors of,
He's gotta suck on his Gatorade. He never got breastfed as a child. That's why he's in a mental institution now. It all adds up, really. This poor guy never gave breastfed as a child. Poor guy, he doesn't know what he missed. Trust me. I think this guy, they had to let him out of the mental facility to give this special speech and everything. I mean, I'm in awe of a mental that could do this. I mean, this is on a totally different level that I've ever seen in my life. Let's see this. This is also worthy of an Oscar right here. Oscar pun. Alright, I think we need to fast forward a bit. Yeah, they're talking about Taco Bell, Panda Express. They're still pissed off about that.
A review that correlated. So starting with I guess we'll start with the physical because that was the question that was put out there. What I have reviewed has demonstrated pushing, shoving, grabbing.
Objection, Your Honor.
Let me see if I can direct this a little differently, Dr. Spiegel. Rather than giving the summary of
Dr.
what
Beagle.
that was, what did you review that correlates? In other words, did you review witness statements? Did
Oh,
you
okay,
review
okay. So what-
depositions, photos?
Yes. So what I reviewed was in terms of like witness statements, Dr. Kipper's notes. Very, very interestingly, actually, early on.
Well, he has a lot of faces in
in-
this.
I think it was
He makes a
2012
lot
or
of
around that time,
weird
2012,
faces.
2014.
And he uses
Ms. Heard
his
was,
hands.
Should beyond the scope of the question.
What he reviewed is the question.
All right, let's see.
So I reviewed just the, so
And what, if any, record evidence do you have that correlates with Mr. Depp being
Well,
narcissistic?
stuff he does to his hand. Like that.
well, I do think
I
that
don't want to know.
the fact that he thought that Amber owed him, Ms. Heard owed him,
Objection, Your Honor.
Where is?
Thank you. Go ahead.
I think we
the
should
fact that
get-
Ms. Heard
skip,
owed him and
skip,
only
skip,
wanted to
skip,
be
skip,
together with him
skip.
because of his fame is an example of that. I do think the jealousy aspects are
Jealousy.
Or testimony and your professional opinions read.
Claims that the victim is
Very good.
erratic, intense.
I apologize.
So what, if any, record evidence did you review?
I think your team told the court you didn't want to have them, and the court ruled on them, right? I don't think the court proactively did it. You kind of had a motion to them, right?
No, when Ms. Heard's lawyers moved for them and asked
Oh,
Direct
she's pissed.
evaluation. Again, I was offered twice that I can do an evaluation of Mr. Depp directly, and both
It was like they'd have to sell for Taco Snell.
Dr. Spiegel, do you remember the question? Does
I
the
think the
Goldwater rule have any applicability
So-
here to your testimony and your conclusions and opinions?
no, it does not.
And
for
why?
Multiple reasons. One, the basics of expert witness testimony would almost be thrown away if you are not allowed to base things on what you evaluated of an individual, what you've read about an individual. So if I'm not allowed to comment on records or charts or information that I look, then expert witness testimony
You're
can't
actually
be done.
not supposed to be.
But more
commenting
specifically
on
for
that
this case,
court,
in the Goldwater rule, the pure version of it was the armchair diagnosis of watching someone on TV.
There goes Goldwater.
Just, you don't make a diagnosis. More
Goldfinger.
recently, I think that's even more recent. We've had examples of that. So you
Talking
don't make
about fishing
diagnoses like
now.
that. This is not the case here, because like I said to you at the beginning, I have reviewed a lot of professionals and their evaluations and their treatment course.
Can you say he was
Video
treating a horse?
deposition, picture deposition, court filings, emails. I mean, I reviewed a whole lot of things that directly describe
That's how
Mr.
real
Depp and his
patients get,
behavior.
you know,
So
diplomas.
I'm not commenting on a public
They
opinion,
gotta
and I have
seriously-
absolutely no
they
knowledge
they're treating
of
a horse or
what's
an
in Mr.
animal
Depp's
or a
history.
pig.
If I was
that
just
they
doing that, it would be
associate
like
with
watching a
food
movie.
and
That-
ham,
That's not relevant here.
cheese.
And in fact, I think you testified earlier, you invited Mr. Depp to
Oh, yeah.
give an
And again-
examination.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Thank you.
So, to be fair, for an evaluation, for my own direct evaluation, again, I was offered twice that I can do an evaluation of Mr. Depp directly, and both times, Mr. Depp and/or his lawyers decided that that wasn't going to happen.
Okay.
So-
And in fact, the court did not require Mr. Depp to.
No, and the court did not require Mr. Depp to undergo this evaluation.
Okay. Dr. Spiegel, these opinions that you have offered here, do you hold them to within a reasonable degree of medical and psychiatric probability or certainty?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, cross-examination. Thank you, Mr. Dennison.
Sir, I'm Wayne Dennison. We haven't met.
So the mental patient was directed by the court. Let's see here.
But let me ask you, let's start with what you finished with.
I'm sorry, one more time?
Let's start with what you finished with. You understand that the court was twice asked by Ms. Heard's counsel to order a medical exam of Mr. Depp, and those motions were denied.
Well, I think your team told the court you didn't want to have them, and the court ruled on them, right? I don't think the court proactively did it. You kind of had a motion to them, right?
No. When Ms. Heard's lawyers moved for them and asked for them and did not get them. Isn't that right, sir?
If you're saying that's what happened, my understanding of was that you all did not want him to undergo one. They petitioned for it. The court said no. Yes, that's what my understanding of it was.
The court said no to ordering Mr. Depp to do the medical exam.
Right, that's I said the court did not require it, right.
And there was one that was ordered, in fact, right?
There was...
All right.
The order mental patient to order Johnny Depp to do
All right, so the last thing you talked about was the Goldwater rule.
Here.
Yes, sir.
Been around for almost 50 years, right?
Yeah, I'm 59. That sounds about right.
Yeah. And it's been around as a result of a presidential election that you referenced.
Well, there's some beautiful ladies.
And who has that rule? What organization maintains that rule?
The American Psychiatric Association.
An association you're a member of.
Don't judge me.
Association that I'm a member of, yes.
Aren't you a fellow or something?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so
he is a mental patient after all,
right?
It is an ethical rule, and yes, it's ethical. They say rules. It's an ethical guideline. Yes,
well, that's what they said he was.
And you know that over time, the American Psychiatric Association has amended the rule, so it's not just about diagnoses, but it's also about professional opinions.
Could you be more specific, say, about professional opinion in regard to what?
Could you be more specific? Mental patient number 9.
Let me read this and see if you're familiar with it. Based on publicly available information without conducting an examination. That's the rule, right?
If you're reading it directly, I would believe you.
Diagnosis that this Goldwater rule applies to, it's professional opinions.
So again, I'll reiterate that would come down to essentially nullifying witness testimony, expert witness testimony, without a direct evaluation. And as we know, it didn't happen. But regardless of that, the whole expert witness testimony thing would be basically rendered null and void.
The rule, in fact, contemplates that issue, doesn't it, sir?
Again, I'm just telling you the answer to the question. When you're reading me those statements, I'm telling you the response by the other side, who publishes also, is that if that was the case, there could be no expert witness testimony in the courtroom.
Psychiatrists are ethically prohibited from evaluating individuals without permission or other authorization, such as a court order. That's the rule, right?
Again, if you're reading that, then I have to believe you're not misrepresenting it. And I would come back to, again, then this whole thing on expert, we might as well get rid of all the expert witnesses we've had throughout all of time for court proceedings. Because what you're saying is unless a court orders it, and that's what you just said, or the APA said, then therefore expert witnesses cannot do an evaluation based on an observation of the medical records. Insurance companies cannot do evaluations based on the medical records with our doctors rendering professional opinions. So at the end of the day, you are essentially saying that unless someone has directly evaluated it, this whole medical system we have, this whole legal system we have is null and void.
I'm not saying.
No, yes, you are, sir. No, you are.
Give me a second, and I'll give you more than a second. What I'm saying and what I am reading to you is a rule.
I like this psychiatric.
By your organization.
The psychiatric here is giving a lawyer a lesson. You know, I mean, this guy. I mean, look. Anyways, I mean, I'm impressed that this mental patient here can stand up to a lawyer. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ.
Takes into account that there could be court orders that would permit the exact kind of evaluation that you say I'm eliminating.
And I think we're going in circles because I think I just said that means expert witness testimony would not be allowed, and the branch of forensic psychiatry would be especially hindered. And we know the branch of forensic psychiatry does not prohibit that. So I am a member of the APA. That doesn't necessarily mean every single thing they put in there, everybody has to uncategorically agree with, because clearly that's not the case.
Did you agree in your deposition that the professional opinions you rendered were inconsistent with the Goldwater rule?
Yeah. My first was inconsistent. If we're saying that if the Goldwater rule says, and I very much said that during deposition, that the Goldwater rule was made for presidents and public figures such as that, but regardless of that, because that's what it was made for. It's not made for Hollywood, but I'll even take that Mr. Depp's a public figure. What I'm saying to you is that the Goldwater rule is saying we cannot do any expert witness testimony in our field. That is exactly what the Goldwater rule is saying based on exactly what you read. And I'm just telling you what you are saying that rule encompasses.
What I'm asking you, sir, is did you comply with the ethical requirements of the APA when rendering the professional opinions that you've rendered today?
It is a requirement of the APA. It is not the requirement of the APA.
But not
secondarily,
so the answer is no?
Secondarily, again, in order to not, we wasted our whole morning because there was an expert witness before me. There's an expert witnesses everyone brought in. So all I'm saying to you, that means the whole field of medical legal law is corrupt and unethical for engaging in an act that the APA clearly says we should not do. So if you're saying that, then the answer is yes, I'm agreeing with that statement.
You kind of is right.
You're agreeing that the APA would deem your testimony and your professional opinions rendered unethical.
I am not
unethical.
saying you are saying that
I know
I'm an
what
expert
I'm
witness.
doing
I'm
in
saying
court.
as an expert witness.
Okay, I gotta get this out there. Okay, some people have made accusations against Tano Montano, an Associates law firm. Okay. First of all, I am mentally incapable I have stage 4 cancer. I have Alzheimer's. I have dementia, and I have everything else. So anything and everything I do, I cannot be held responsible for. And I feel like I have to put that out there, you know? So, I just see that my microphone here is like in my face, and I'm doing that not for legal reasons. I'm doing that. I don't have to answer these questions.
And solely as an expert witness, that guideline is permitting that from occurring. I would say then that the whole field of expert witness testimony, again, would be disavowed by what you are quoting in the Goldwater rule, and we know that's not the case, because if it was, we would not be allowed to do it.
And you said the rule was for presidents, right? And
That was
public
initially for
figures.
presidents, yes.
But, and the name of the rule came from that. But the rule says it is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual. That's right, sir. It's not just presidents, it's not public figures, it's individuals.
Funny, it was named after the, according to your logic, if you don't put something in the title, it's not true. That's what you told me this morning, I believe, at my intimate partner violence. So what I would say to you then, sir, is that if you say this about an individual, again, any court would have to render an expert witness testimony invalid. Any doctor that reviews charts would have to render it invalid. I can go on the list of docs that do not see or interview patients directly, and that's a violation. So basically, you are saying that unless you do a direct clinical evaluation, then all of the field of forensic psychiatry and all of managed care is doing an unethical violation because we are not seeing the presence. We deny patients medications all the time without seeing them. We deny patients treatments, unfortunately, without seeing them. And I'm on the receiving end of that. So the answer to your question, again, unless you were saying to me that all of this is unethical, which is what you are saying. This is how I'm interpreting what you are saying to me. That unless you do the evaluation directly yourself, therefore, it cannot be considered ethical. And I'm telling you how that's applicable to not just expert law, but also managed care. It's applicable to multiple branches of medicine. Hospital duration of hospitalization stay, they get evaluated. So tell me where you want me to end this.
Well,
Sir.
why don't we talk about what you just testified to? Because I didn't ask you anything about that. I asked you better. Under this rubric, under this principle of medical ethics, have you acted unethically? Yes or no?
No. As an expert witness, I have not acted unethically. And if you want the jury to believe that expert witnesses are unethical, then I guess that's for them to decide.
Yes
that's
or no,
for them
sir.
to
You
decide.
said no. Let's go to the next question.
Okay.
Right? Psychiatric diagnosis occurs in the context of an evaluation based on thorough history-taking, examination, and where applicable, collated or collateral information. You'll agree with that?
I believe I said that earlier.
People in there are like,
And it's a departure from the method,
like
from the
they're
methods
about
of the
to
profession to
conk
render an
out.
opinion without an examination
yeah,
and without
yawning,
conducting an evaluation
yawning.
in accordance with the standards of psychiatric practice. Correct?
Cardiac gas.
Well, again, by the way, for the record, intimate partner violence is not a psychiatric diagnosis. I'll start with that. Substance usage by themselves is not a psychiatric diagnosis. If you want to cut to the chase, psychiatry is not a diagnosis of that. Narcissistic personality traits is not a diagnosis. Ergo, I am basically commenting on the things that were brought to me, which are not diagnoses. But an evaluation, if I was going to treat a patient or anyone here,
because you're telling what
those are the steps I would take.
We, I think, started with the notion that this rule applies broader than diagnoses. It applies to professional opinions.
I believe
and
you
you've
just
rendered
quoted
professional opinions relative to narcissistic personality traits, haven't you, sir? Relative to Mr. Depp.
Again, I believe you just commented on what it takes to do in a psychiatric evaluation to establish a diagnosis. I'm almost certain that's what you said. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you didn't say that. But I'm sure you did. And therefore, what I'm saying is neither IPV nor substance usage nor narcissistic personality traits a psychiatric diagnosis. And then under the rubric of expert witness testimony, you are saying I acted unethically under the rubric of expert witness testimony. So if you, sir, would like to proceed that expert witnesses are unethical, based on that, I am not going to sit here and disagree with you and waste everyone's time. I think it's fairly obvious. So thank you. Go ahead. These were your words. I'm just saying them back how they're interpreted.
Okay. Let's start with the easy question then. Maybe we can.
That was pretty easy. Go ahead.
All right, Doctor, you're going to have to just answer the questions.
Okay, sorry about that.
I got it. That was beautiful Oscar material. I mean,
you are not rendering any diagnosis whatsoever of Mr. Depp today or ever.
mental patient.
No, I
takes
probably
time.
would say to you that, certainly I would not say narcissistic personalities, or I would say traits. Certainly, from what I have read, intimate partner violence is not a diagnosis. So the answer is no.
You know, I gotta ask, what does it take to be a mental patient and get where he is today? I mean, I'm in awe and I'm inspired to go back to the mental institution. I mean, the club that I was at, and try to educate myself and better myself for this. I mean, this guy is awesome.
For that. Narcissistic personality traits
No,
is
it's awesome.
not a diagnosis. The answer is no. But if you want to tell me that substance use disorder is a psychiatric diagnosis, the answer is yes. And
But that wasn't an issue, was it? Whether Mr.
Mr.
Del.
Delph says they have these weird cone hats sometimes because it's just weird. Kind of, you know, or like one of those funnel hats, those aluminum thingies. What is it? Because they think that ESP and stuff cannot penetrate those hats. And oh, that's his hair. Oh, okay. I was wondering. I thought he was wearing one of those aluminum whatever hat. What's the difference?
Used substances. I mean, you said you've gone through the record. That wasn't really an issue at this trial. He's said it from day one.
Johnny Depp's in law.
oh, so you're saying he's already admitted to the diagnosis?
He's already admitted to the use of the substances.
Well, again, there's a difference between admitting to substance use and substance use disorder.
Let's go back to what you just said about narcissistic personality traits.
Yes.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a DSM-5 diagnosis, correct?
Do I really
Correct.
have a narcissistic disorder?
Diagnostic personality.
Maybe I
And
have.
you haven't testified that Mr. Depp has narcissistic personality disorder, have you?
I would certainly, if I didn't, I'm certainly thinking that, but at least I'm going to say he has traits which are characteristics of provisional diagnosis of, it's a provisional diagnosis of probably narcissistic personality disorder. But yeah, I mean, I do believe that.
Well, when you say provisional diagnosis, you know the DSM-5 requires, in order to find that diagnosis, 5 of
Partner violence, part and parcel, uniformly true. And I'm not sure, the thing I don't understand is, I'm not sure why we're arguing psychiatry, because I'm telling you what it is.
Dr. Siegel, you just need to answer the question.
Okay.
Just to answer the question.
So you want to talk about cluster B, so let's do that for a minute. Borderline personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
As part of cluster B traits, yes.
Histrionic personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
Less so.
But it
Less so.
It's good.
Less so.
It's
I mean,
cluster.
it's a risk factor, but less so, yes.
Yeah.
Less so. Significantly less so.
All right. So which traits under narcissistic, before I move on there, there's only been one diagnosis in court of personality disorders, correct?
I'm not sure who you're referring to. Are you referring to Mr.
Look at
Depp,
her.
Ms. Hurd? I'm not sure what you were talking about.
Do you understand that there was a medical examination done of Ms.
She's
Hurd?
not dumb.
Yes, I
She's
did.
not. She's
Do you
actually very
understand
smart,
that the
you know.
testimony was
Very smart
ultimately
woman.
that Ms. Hurd suffers from 2 personality disorders?
Okay, so I'm just being specific. I just wanted to know if you're talking about Ms. Hurd or Mr. Depp. So that's all I was asking you.
Yes or no to my question?
Which was there's only one diagnosis of, Ms. Hurd was diagnosed with that.
Yeah, and both of the diagnoses are in cluster B, and both of them are risk factors for IPV.
But both those cluster B things are, I'm not allowed to comment on the testing, so therefore, all I can say is that cluster B traits and I'll tell you what they are. And by the way, I testified this before, which was that, one, I don't expect perfection from my victims. Two, absolutely there were cluster B trace Miss Hurd had. Absolutely, Miss Hurd had.
Given that you've testified to it before, let's move on to a new question.
Okay.
All right. You indicated, in your opinion today, that you thought, well, why don't we move a little different? Are you a member of the American Medical Association?
No.
Okay, so you don't know what the ethical rule of the American Medical Association is relative to doing clinical diagnoses about individuals you've never talked to.
So you're saying in terms of doing expert witness evaluations under that rubric, right?
I'm just asking you, do you know the AMA's rule?
You're saying the AMA's ruling under the rubric of not doing evaluation with somebody you did not see, and I'm questioning, I'm asking, so you are talking about expert witness testimony?
No, I'm talking about, do you know the rule?
I'm not a member of the AMA, so I don't read the rule.
We can move on. You don't know the rule. All right. You rendered an opinion about Mr. Depp's purported cognitive impairment.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you use as a baseline?
A baseline for processing speed?
Yeah.
You know, they were talking about this earlier. About, he was talking about how people with disorders, stuff like that, throw tantrums, break stuff in their houses, put holes in the walls and everything. That's typical Hollywood, people in Hollywood and celebrities, that happens. That sounds like the average Hollywood person and other celebrities and stuff. So I'm not, that's just normal to me and stuff. So I just have to put that out there and everything. So yeah.
For analyzing Mr. Depp before you watched his deposition.
What I use a baseline for that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my baseline would probably be how I've seen him interact in public. How I've seen him interact with others. I've seen him interact in media. I've seen him interact all.
So this guy hasn't seen him interact with others, and the mental patient here. It's a good thing he's not really a licensed physician or psych. He's probably licensed psychotic though. From what I just gotta put that out there. It's one psychotic to another. I feel this guy. But you don't be judging people so much when you never even see them in fucking public. And maybe I should be this way more often too.
And his process speed is certainly not slow. I've seen him do commercials. His process speed was not slow.
At deposition, didn't you say that what you did was compare Mr. Depp's performance in lots of pirate movies against his deposition testimony here?
What I said was I've seen Mr. Depp do apology ads. I remember he did an apology ad with Bad Dog with no delay in process speed. I've seen him interact with the media regarding to that. I saw no delay in processing speed. All I'm saying.
Let me ask you about pirates, though. You compared pirates to the to the depositions given in this case.
Then I apologize for what I said. Then I misspoke.
You misspoke? You didn't make the comparison?
Right now, just a second ago? Just a second ago, I may have said that I misspoke. I apologize, I misspoke.
Okay. Because you know you can't compare pirates to sworn testimony, right?
Of course you can. Okay. This is a Hollywood case. There's always pirates in these cases somewhere. I'm just looking for the fucking gold.
But but as an aside, you can judge someone's processing speed at any time. Like, I'm judging yours right now, you're judging mine. We all judge processing speed as a baseline because of what we know about each other. I would say your processing speed right now is not slow. So, I mean, we're judging processing speed. I'm just saying to you.
Yeah.
Judging
But no,
processing
any of Mr.
how
Depp's
the
other
story is
portrayals
going.
in movies, did that affect your analysis of processing speed?
Only I've seen him interact on interviews, and that.
You see him in that movie, Charlie and Chocolate Factory? Did you look at that one when you were comparing his processing speed?
Let's see here. Okay, cool.
Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor?
You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
No, you'll be happy to know I didn't see Willy Wonka I didn't see 21 Jump Street when it happened, or whatever it was about. No, I did not.
All right.
Wow.
You made a very kind admission, I think, early on in your deposition, that you're not claiming to be a better actor than Mr. Depp. That's correct, isn't it?
100%.
She's still happy.
But with respect to acting, you know that actors actually rehearse for their parts and work on the language, diction, timing of their dialogue as part of that rehearsal?
If you say that, I'm not an actor, so I don't know what goes on. I can't tell you. I have no idea what goes on in acting.
Okay, but you don't know enough about acting to know whether actors rehearse?
Sir, I am not an expert in acting. I have no idea what an actor does.
Okay.
What?
During your
Like,
deposition,
I don't know.
what were the circumstances under which you decided to call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Under somebody call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Yeah, you called Mr. Depp an idiot in your deposition. Why
Oh, I
did you
think.
do
Okay. So I think it was in the context. I think it was in the. Probably should read the context of it, because I think the context was, and I'm trying to think back. I hope. Okay. And what I thought it was related to was if you're coming to some deposition, okay. And again, I'm thinking back, so you have it in front of you.
The mental patient's trying to.
I don't. So I'm thinking back where he's coming in from Europe for a deposition, video deposition that he gave, and he took an overnight the night before. And what I think I said was that if you're going to do a major thing to a trial that you're involved with, I think you'd be an idiot to come in the night before.
All right.
So I didn't call Mr. Depp an idiot. I certainly called that planning an idiot. I didn't call him an idiot.
So the words, so I mean he's an idiot, are mistranscribed?
No, I'm sure, again, if I said it in that, if you're just reading one line, one snippet, I'm sure it was in the context I just said. But again, you have it in front of you, I don't.
Yeah. Is idiot a professional opinion?
I wasn't rendering professional opinion,
Yeah.
no.
Is it a psychiatric opinion?
And that follows the Goldwater rule.
Goldwater.
How does
Don't
it
be
follow
nervous.
Well, you just said that I'm not rendering a professional opinion. I just said idiot. That's not a Goldwater.
So idiot is not a professional opinion? Mm-hmm. Is it your practice to describe people as idiots?
My practice to describe people, in my practice, no, I don't describe people my clinical cases as idiots or patients as idiots or victims as idiots. No, sir.
But you sat for a deposition in this case and described the plaintiff as an idiot, correct?
You gave me 9 hours of deposition,
Yes.
and if I said the word idiot, it was an idiot in planning. It wasn't making him
Idiot
an
in
idiot. I
planning.
don't know Mr.
There's
Depp's
a
IQ.
difference.
I don't know his
An
overall
idiot
functioning. So
in
therefore,
planning,
if
you're
I said
planning-
it was an idiot in
You are planning your life ahead as an idiot. And look at this guy. In all his glory, in all this mental intelligence, he became the head idiot of where he is today.
planning, which is what I meant to come across as.
Yes.
All right. So you did say you don't know his overall functioning, but you made some testimony today as to some evaluations you made relative to his functioning. You would agree with me that it's probably a good idea to think about the questions that are asked you in a court proceeding before answering them.
Am I allowed to answer that question?
Yes.
Okay. So what I meant by function, what I said by function, I believe that his agent reported how late he was showing up to every movie while the cast is waiting for him. I believe that would be an impairment. If I showed up late for that, I would not be here right now, would not have a job. Okay? I believe the thing was in terms of balking out of treatment for substance rehab that his doctor is prescribing for him. So if you're asking me if that's an impairment of functioning, I would say I'm very much substantiated in that.
I'm trying to understand how you got to this notion of cognitive decline. And I thought it was based at least in part on the manner in which he testified that you made.
Yes.
And it was my understanding that at least a portion of that testimony that you rendered was that you derived some evidence of cognitive decline from the way Mr. Depp testified.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I said, yes.
Right. And so all I'm asking you is, don't you think it's a good idea when you're in the middle of a court proceeding to answer questions carefully?
Again, professionally, we diagnose patients with a neurocognitive disorder. I'm just saying, age normative controls does not put a 58-year-old gentleman at that processing. That's all I'm saying. That's
Right.
all I said.
And you derived this without ever once talking to the man.
Me directly talking to him. Because we know how I derived it. So you're talking about me directly talking to him?
Yeah, you never talked.
No, I've never talked to him.
Right. And this
Never talked to him.
exam you gave, well, you did talk about Dr. Blaustein, right?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that the entirety of Dr. Blaustein's medical records are 12 pages of handwritten notes.
The important part was what I said. For me, as an example of cognition, which I'm trying to prove.
Okay, guys. That's it. Oh boy. We listened to the mental patient. We heard life-changing, testimony here from really the mental patient on his stand, judging another person that he's never seen or heard in his life. And it's amazing. Y'all have a good day, good night. Bless y'all and take care.